Hey, how's it going, and welcome to another video. Alright, so a while back I asked you guys if you had any games, anime, series, whatever, that you wish got more attention. I'm sure we all have that one series where we're just like, man, this thing is baller, but nobody seems to talk about it. And I figured I'd give you guys a chance to kind of like shill some of these series, since that's really what the channel is about at the end of the day, is just like me talking about stuff that I like. And I'm always on the lookout for new stuff to watch and play, so yeah, let's check them out. Disgrace Star says The World Ends With You series. It has gotten a fair amount of recognition, but it somehow still ends up being quite niche. With its original game being released in 2007 on the DS, it takes full advantage of the DS's capabilities and tells one of the most fantastic stories I've seen. It has also been ported to mobile and the Switch, and while the Switch version Final Remix has an extra story chapter that sets up the sequel, the gameplay is very different and overall worse from the original on the DS. Also, a sequel called Neo The World Ends With You came out last month for Nintendo Switch and PS4. Yeah, I heard that game didn't sell super well, which is unfortunate, but yeah, dog, The World Ends With You has been one of those series, or one of those games, I guess, that like, I've known about it for years and years and years. I remember in like, fucking 2008 and 2009. First kind of seeing about it online, I was like, yeah, this seems cool. And for literally 14 years, that's just how I've been. It's like, oh, this seems cool, I'll play it eventually. I'll get to it one day, I swear to God. Plan says, for me, it's gotta be the Disgaea series. It's honestly one RPG that I think is completely unique, and that it just has its own charm. It's dumb and stupid, and the fact that the games challenge you to reach level 9,999 is so dumb, but I just end up loving it in my own way. It's definitely a bit daunting to get to, especially when you see the crazy amount of damage you're doing, but once you get hooked, you will stay hooked. I really recommend this dumb series, and there are 6 games so far, but I recommend starting at 5 or 4. Dude, I have a friend who's like a fucking Disgaea maniac. Like, I don't think I know any other person who's that into Disgaea, but I ended up getting, like, quite a few years ago, the HD collection on PS3 and just never really played it. I played, like, a little bit of 3, but, you know, I enjoyed it, but there was just other stuff popped up, but at some point I'll definitely give the series another shot. Katrina Leylander says Blazblue for sure. It's full of so much character, everyone's pretty in-depth, and the first 2 games, each character has their own story mode which adds so much to the universe and makes me care much more about who I like and want to play. Plus, it's got some bangin' music. The lore is pretty ridiculous and wacky, but it's also really interesting to read and talk about, and especially getting to experience it in the games and the manga proper. At least with what we Westerners are able to experience, you know how it is with no exports. Haha, yeah, I do. Honestly, although the fighting game aspect is fun, I just really like the Blazblue universe as a whole, and the games totally deserve more attention. It'd be really cool to see more in-depth discussion about all the interesting characters and crazy shit that happens, plus again, the music is fucking fire. See, I kind of feel like bad for the Blazblue people, cause, you know, in like the early kind of PS3 era, Blazblue was sort of like in a way, the definitive anime fighting game. And then it kind of feels like once, you know, Guilty Gear came back, Blazblue almost got like kind of kicked to the curb. Like obviously they were making stuff with it, like Cross Tag Battle, but who knows, maybe someday Blazblue will make like a big triumphant return instead of being stuck as like a mobile game. Hailstar says Valkyria Chronicles is up there for me. It's a game series that combines turn-based strategy with third-person shooter, as well as a heavy emphasis on the characters and their developments. The story and characters are surprisingly good for a low fantasy setting loosely based on World War II, with characters being relatively realistic depictions of folks fighting for their country while keeping their ideals intact in tough times. Yeah, I remember like very early on in the PS3's lifespan, Valkyria Chronicles was like kind of one of the big games that people would gravitate towards. The PS3 definitely didn't have a whole lot of anime World War II like strategy games going on. But yeah, I do have it, but I never ended up finishing it. So at some point I'll definitely have to give it another go, since I did definitely like what I played of it. Versa Matrix says definitely 13 Sentinels. The art is gorgeous, the story is complex and really interesting, and the actual tactics gameplay is pretty fun too. It checks a lot of boxes in a lot of different ways, but it feels sort of glossed over in the long run. Hopefully it'll be a hidden gem that people come back to in a few years. Oh yeah, like, I have done everything in my power to shill 13 Sentinels. That was like my game of the year for 2020. And pretty much everybody that I recommended to is like, dude, that game was really good. Since it really does have like I think one of the best video game stories I've ever experienced. Like, it has great characters, it looks so beautiful. I think it is kind of just like a victim of like a lack of marketing. Since I was even surprised to realize the game was like coming out, you know? Like they made almost no attempt to kind of get that game out to the masses, which is a shame because like, dog, that game was so good. Herbert Blanc says, any Suda 51 game I feel should fit this bill. The storytelling feels so different, the characters feel so eclectic, and are always so unique in gameplay, at least to me. Most of these games kind of always border whole experiences rather than just games, and I love them to death for that. Dude, like, I've been getting told to play No More Heroes for fucking years and years. I think, surprisingly, I don't think I've played a single one of this guy's games. Despite the fact that I've, like, wanted to. Like, I've wanted to play No More Heroes, I wanted to play Lollipop Chainsaw. Is that game still stuck on the PS3? I don't think that game ever got brought to PC. Yeah, that and, like, Killer 7, like... He has a lot of games I've wanted to try out, it's just hasn't happened. I'll get around to it, I swear. Jack1217 says, this will be buried underneath the sea of comments. Haha, that's what you think. But it would be cool if more people talked about how awesome the Sakura Wars games are. Most of the games only came out in Japan, but they're pretty solid JRPGs that I wish got more attention. Yeah, Sakura Wars is one of those series that, like, I've always heard of it, but I still don't quite know what it is. Like, I've seen the model kits for the mechs and stuff, but it's always one of those series that, like, I've never known anybody who talks about it in any particular depth. But I'll look into it at some point. Like, I'm pretty sure the most recent one is in English, so maybe I'll check that one out. Bill Wilson says, Ace Combat. The series has without a doubt some of the best gameplay, music, and stories out of any video game. Fun always comes first, and Ace Combat 7 has the best soundtrack of the past decade. Damn. Yeah, somebody actually bought me Ace Combat 7, shout out to Fib. I'll get around to it. Now that I have like an entirely new computer, basically, I can probably run it better. So yeah, I'll immerse myself in some more playing action soon. Hangman Bryce says, I will always be the guy defending and shilling the Yokai Watch series. Some may remember Yokai Watch as the Pokemon killer that came out around the time of XY, and I think he meant to say, and was heavily advertised as such in the West. The saddest thing is that it gave the series an unfair rap as being a clone and dismissed by a lot of people. The games are really fun, the yokai you befriend are all charming, and the game has a super cozy atmosphere. It really makes you feel like a 5th grader on summer vacation. I won't spoil anything about the games, but I'll also mention that the stories of the games get pretty emotional too, Yokai Watch 2 in particular. The games are also well known for having tons of content. Every game has at least 2 full post-game dungeons and tons of yokai you can only get after you beat the main story. Seriously, take a look at the how long to beat pages for 2 and 3, it's kind of insane. Sadly, the series is pretty dead in Japan and in the West, with Yokai 4 and the Switch remake of the first game probably never coming out in America, and Yokai Watch 3 selling super poorly in America, leading to it becoming pretty rare and expensive. But if you want a cozy monster collecting RPG on the 3DS, Yokai Watch 1 and 2 are pretty easy to come by for cheap now, and they are highly recommended by me. See, this actually really takes me back to my childhood in particular, because, like, growing up, anything that was perceived of as being either, like, a Pokemon clone or a Yu-Gi-Oh clone was like, no can do. Like, pretty much any kind of monster collection, card game, like, Duel Masters, I remember was a big one. You brought up Duel Masters to people that played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was growing up, and you would, like, get shot. But yeah, it's always unfortunate when that happens, whenever something comes out that's, like, only sort of vaguely similar to another series that kind of just gets stomped out as being like, oh yeah, you mean that Pokemon clone? And that's always kind of shitty in general, whenever you really genuinely like something, but like, people's first reaction is just to think like, oh yeah, that ripoff of popular series? Like, no, things that are kind of conceptually similar can exist alongside each other, it is possible. Louis Precure says Precure franchise. Probably the biggest Mahou shoujo franchise since 2004, but outside of Japan, hardly anyone knows it exists. I'm happy that last year and this year's seasons got to Crunchyroll, so there is some chance for it to finally get some recognition. Kiflam Dolphin says, in terms of TV shows, that would be Assassination Classroom for me. I got into the show myself due to one of my best friends watching it and saying, Dolphin, the main character reminds me of you personality-wise. I got curious and checked it out, and it was a brilliant show that I found just as funny as I did sad. Its premise is simple. The main character, who's a weird octopus-looking thing called Koro-sensei, is the teacher of a classroom in Japan, and the student's one and only objective is to kill him before the end of the school year or he'll destroy the Earth. I'm not saying it's not popular, I just don't hear a lot of people talk about it, and I think it's a darn shame. The show took the concepts of studying, homework, and exams and somehow turned them into exciting battles that kept me entertained every time they showed up. And that's gotta count for something. The show is just as funny as it is dramatic. There are plenty of moments that kept me on the edge of my seat, moments that almost made me cry, but plenty more that made me laugh till I was red in the face. Hearing Koro-sensei sing a song about how to draw his face in the earth is something I hum to myself all the time. Long story short, Assassination Classroom, no one talks about it, they should, it's brilliant. Plus, I am Koro-sensei IRL. Only difference is I can't move as fast as he can. Holy shit, real Koro-sensei? Yeah, like, I'm definitely aware of Assassination Classroom, like, I've heard about it. I've seen Koro-sensei, I've definitely seen him, but yeah, it's not really one of those shows that I see a whole lot of discussion about. So at some point, I'll probably check it out. Liquid Zera says, over the past 2 years, I've been wishing that The Legend of Heroes got more attention, just because I love how it pushes its characters, interpersonal political relations and gameplay over the course of the series, and how you get to see people grow old together and see them tested time and time again. Lemon Disaster says, in terms of anime, I'd say history's strongest disciple Kenichi. It's one of those 2000s anime that people vaguely remember but never talk about. Dude, I am absolutely one of those fucking people. I remember seeing, like, the commercials and stuff for it on just like random Funimation DVDs, but I never ended up watching it, so that stereotype is definitely me. It's all about a guy named Kenichi learning martial arts. I love how you can really see the protagonist Kenichi's growth throughout the series and the sheer insanity of the fights in the manga that weren't adapted, which is a huge chunk of the story. It's definitely a series I found at the right time in my life, and it greatly impacted me in a way few series can. Ness Valentine says, I want the Devil Summoner Rydo games to get the love it deserves, bro. The music, the gameplay, the setting, everything about it is godlike, and Rydo is too cool of a design to never use again. I think the Rydo games are the only PS2 Mega 10 games I have never finished. I definitely need to get back on that, but yeah, Rydo is such a cool looking fucking character. I think now, especially that like Atlas has that relationship with Koei Tecmo after making Persona 5 Strikers, like, now is the time to bring Rydo back. I would play the hell out of that, shit. Shane Brightheart says, I wish the Gravity Rush series got more love. Between the great characters and the unique gravity-based gameplay, it's easily become one of my favorite games. I remember back when it first came out, Gravity Rush was kind of like one of the only Vita games anybody ever talked about. Like that and Persona 4 Golden, it seemed like those were the only two Vita games that were like ever discussed ever. And now Gravity Rush is on PS4 and like P4G is on Steam, so, oh man, poor Vita. But yeah, I'll definitely give him a shot at some point. It seems like a game series I'd like, but, you know, I got a lot of other stuff going on. I'm a very busy boy. Not really. Bear Luke says, a while ago, Alpha Dream went bankrupt due to weird decisions and low sales of the Bowser's Inside Story remake. Personally, while I know it's a bit widely known, I'd like to call it the Mario and Luigi series. It's by far my favorite Mario product, with an interesting battle system that is easy to learn but hard to master. Bowser's Inside Story is definitely in my top 20 games, and I believe that Paper Mario shouldn't be the only Mario RPG series now. I hope Alpha Dream can return someday. Yeah, Bowser's Inside Story is really good. I haven't played any of the other ones, but yeah, Bowser's Inside Story I think definitely stands out as being like one of the best games on the DS. And it really sucks that the studio behind them like went under, since seeing some new games in that series on the Switch probably would have done really, really well, but yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. Honker says, Rhythm Thief honestly isn't the best game ever, but it's one of my favorite games. It's a very interesting 3DS rhythm game with a Phantom Thief MC, and it really feels like the game is made just for me because I love both the game genre and the character trope. It's published by Sega, yet nobody ever seems to talk about it. Also, the OST bangs hard. Sadly, one of the songs became a TikTok meme, and it's the only bit of fame the game ever got, damn. Yeah, Rhythm Thief came out like very, very early in the 3DS's lifespan. Like, it was always one of those games that like I kind of saw around on the internet, but rhythm games just really aren't my thing, but it seems really cool. Maybe someday it'll get a sequel, who knows, maybe not, but it's possible. Dark says, despite it getting somewhat more popular around the world a few years back, I still feel like the Symphogear franchise is pretty niche and unknown aside from Japan, and that's a shame. While I can't deny that it's not for everyone, especially back when it still lacked an identity of its own during the first season, Symphogear takes the ridiculous premise of girls fighting while singing catchy J-pop and manages to make it some of the most fun I've ever had with any anime, due to the mixture of increasingly stupid yet awesome stuff they keep pulling as the series progresses. So yeah, watch Symphogear. It's stupid, but it's awesome. It's Yaya says, definitely Digital Devil Saga. Hey, let's go. Great gameplay, great music, great characters, and Gale. Gale is my spirit animal. Yeah, like, I think most people watching this channel are probably at least aware of Digital Devil Saga, but it definitely doesn't have the same kind of following that, like, Nocturne or SMT4 or definitely Persona has, which is a shame, because I really like Digital Devil Saga. It's great. Lemon Squeezy says, I think the one series of games that I love that needs more attention is Punch-Out! A lot of people, particularly Nintendo, have it sitting in Nintendo's library as a weird phenomenon that happens every 20 years or so. Anyone who actually plays the game knows that it could definitely stand on its own. But Nintendo doesn't actually make games for it, so people don't have a reason to talk about it. The games are incredibly fun, if not simple experiences that are definitely worth admiring for game design, animation, and generally just the colorful nature of it. Seriously, people should talk about racist cartoon boxer Dark Souls, so Nintendo will finally make another game. God, imagine if a new Punch-Out comes out, like, in the fucking era we live in. I'm sure every garbage shit fucking, like, games journalist site will be like, Punch-Out's offensive history. That'll be, like, the essays that they come out with. But yeah, I think a new Punch-Out would do pretty well. Like you said, the games only seem to come out, like, once every 10, 20 years. So there's a lot of people, I mean, even like boomers who are fucking 40 at this point have a lot of nostalgia for like Punch-Out on the NES. You know, you put out a new Punch-Out, people will be like, oh yeah, Punch-Out, I remember that. That's the game that had Mike Tyson in it. Or, oh yeah, that's the series that Little Mac is from. So yeah, I think a new Punch-Out would be cool. Hibiki says Gundam. It has so many entries and possible starting points that it makes it easy to overwhelm people. So much of it is so good. With some amazing protagonists like Camille Bidan, my boy, Garrett Ron of Gundam X being my favorite. I just wish fans wouldn't try to throw newbies into the UC since so much of that is so connected, compared to say 00X and IBO, which are at least in their own universe and self-contained. Also, new Gundam entries announced hype. Yeah, Gundam is kind of interesting because, like, Gundam is, like, quite literally one of the biggest multimedia franchises ever, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't feel like I see as many people that are, like, Gundam fans, you know? I think, like you mentioned, it really is just the fact that it's such a big series. There's, like, 40 years worth of shit to sift through. So I'd imagine for a lot of people, it's kind of like, it's that series that, like, you look at it and you're like, oh, I see 500 million different series. Some that are connected to each other, some that are not. So yeah, I think Gundam is definitely one of those series that, like, you could kind of use a guiding hand to get into it. Like, when I got into it, my friend Grady pretty much took me through, like, a tour of the shit that he wanted me to watch, so I think having a Gundam buddy to get into it with is definitely very helpful. Turkeys and Hot Dogs says, the Jet Set Radio series as a whole deserves more love. While the original on the Dreamcast is clunky and hard to control, it still revolutionized gaming and inspired a lot of other devs to make their own games inspired by it. Its sequel definitely paid off. It's much easier to control and the visuals are stunning. Definitely check the series out if you're bored. The original is only $5 on Steam. My beloved Poggers GF keeps telling me to play Jet Set Radio. I will eventually, I swear. I have it on Steam, I have for years. Lodestar says, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex is high-key one of the best shows I've ever watched, but I feel like it has received far less recognition than the movie. To me, it is peak cyberpunk fiction. See, it's funny you brought that up, because, like, I've actually had a weird craving to rewatch Standalone Complex. The last time I watched it was, like, 10 years ago. But yeah, Standalone Complex is really good. Like, the Ghost in the Shell, like, the original movie is one of my favorite movies ever. But Standalone Complex is also really good. I highly recommend it. Just Guy says, Kaiji the Ultimate Survivor is amazing, even if it is a little bit stretched. The raw emotion makes you invested in the story. Oh yeah, dude, Kaiji is awesome. Like, if you're looking for something that'll, like, stress you out, basically, like, Kaiji is the fucking show to watch. Critcholite says, my favorite anime Gintama. I feel like everyone has either heard of it or has an idea of what it's like, but it still feels pretty niche. The first few episodes are mostly setups that are pretty good but can sometimes drag on. Given time though, the show gets really interesting and the entire cast including the side characters is top tier. The comedy and action are also very solid, although some jokes references Japanese pop culture and celebrities that fly over my head, but they are very few and far between. Overall, the show is not perfect, but I absolutely adore it. Adeniyi Amishore, I guess I said that right, says Rune Factory. The Rune Factory series are a great set of games, especially 4. They're basically medieval fantasy versions of the Harvest Moon games, which are, if you didn't know, farming games. I get that people wouldn't be interested in a farming sim, but Rune Factory is so much more than that. They're great games with a great story, especially 4, and has real fun combat. I also love how basically every monster in the game, including some bosses, you can tame. Sure, you have your basic farm animals, but I bet you've never seen a frickin' dragon watch over your crops, help you plant seeds and water them before, have you? I have not. Also, like in Harvest Moon, you can get married and have a kid. You can then force that kid to work on your farm for you while you go explore some dungeons. You can also pretty much form a party with any NPC in town, so I would take the character I married and my kid into dungeons. Oh, it's a cute little family activity. Honestly, breaks my heart how there might not be a Rune Factory 5. Fib says Hoseki no Kuni, my favorite manga and has some of the most unique settings I've seen in a story, where basically the world got fucked over by giant-ass meteors and humans slowly evolved over thousands of years into sentient gem people, where the main threat is being taken and used as weapons and jewelry by moon people who come from Rorschach spots from the sky. It has one of my favorite characters ever, where the main character physically goes through the Ship of Theseus paradox, where if you slowly replace every piece of the ship, is it still the same ship? And is basically forced to be the change in a world that's been stagnating for thousands of years. In 2017, it got an anime adaptation by Studio Orange, same studio that made Beastars, and was the main show people pointed at for the example of being great CGI in anime. Sadly, the furry money was too good. Oh, those goddamn furries. So it's never gotten a second season as of now. Due to the manga being somewhat niche and the lack of a second season, it's fallen out of conversation. Yeah, I remember in when the anime was airing, a lot of people were talking about it, but I haven't heard much of anything about it since, I mean, shit, you're the last person I remember talking about it. Fun fact, the author Haruka Ichikawa has also worked on some of the Pokemon designs. The confirmed designs she's worked on are Chairman Rose and Oleana from Sword and Shield, and she was a credited character designer for Sun and Moon, although it didn't state specifically on which one. Rumor designs are the Ultra Beast, specifically Nihilego, Pheromosa, and Celesteela. Yeah, I might have to give it a watch. I remember, like I said a few years ago, a lot of people talking about it, but I just never got around to it. So yeah, I might have to look into that. Cynical Nihilist says, when talking about Togashi's work, everyone talks about either Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter, but no one ever mentions Level E, a comedy series he did between the two works. Dude, I have never heard of this in my life before you brought it up. Every story arc has a twist I never saw coming, even after the first one where you're now expecting it, and it never fails to make me cackle. You're seriously made to feel like a fucking moron when the twist drops for believing the truth could be anything else. And it's a real credit to Takashi's ability to string along his audience. Whether it be the anime or the original manga, it definitely deserves more love. James Valkyrie says, for me, it's the Suikoden RPG series. It's not really unpopular, but way underrated compared to series like Final Fantasy and Persona. I love playing all the games back on the PS2. It saddens me that the series might never come back because of Konami. I'm excited for its spiritual successor Eiyuden Chronicle though, made by the same team who made Suikoden and releasing supposedly in 2022 or 2023. Dimensional Nemesis says Etrian Odyssey, always them SMT and Persona Wars while EO kinda rots. Dude, I bought Etrian Odyssey Untold, the updated version of the first game for 3DS, fucking 8 years ago, and I've never finished it. And it's one of those things where, I was enjoying what I played of it, but other stuff kept, popping up. I'll get around to it someday, I promise, I swear. Dalton Williams says Kid Icarus Uprising. Definitely my favorite 3DS game with great voice acting, music, gameplay, and an amazing story. I know that Sakurai said he doesn't intend to continue the series anytime soon, but I'm still hoping they make a sequel someday. Oh man, a Kid Icarus Uprising 2 on the Switch would be fucking awesome. Cause yeah, Kid Icarus Uprising really is, I think, it's one of the best 3DS games for sure. Just what a pleasant experience, really great characters, like you said, the voice acting is really good, it's a lot of fun. Famous YouTuber Tommylemao says, Fate Zero is a criminally underwatched show since everyone is too confused about the watch order of the Fate series. It works very well as a standalone anime, and Kuritsugu is a goated AF protagonist. Some of the best characters, soundtrack, and animation out there. Lando That G says, I wish more people talked about No More Heroes. The whole series is so inventive and great. Even the weaker games and moments that are nowhere near perfect games often aren't that noticeable because the game is simply so inventive. Definitely my favorite Suda games, I just love everything about the series so much. I'll play them one day, I swear I will. Trash_boat says definitely Final Fantasy V. I feel like because it's wedged between the god tier 4 and 6, it often gets overshadowed, especially because it's a bit more lighthearted when it comes to story and characters. Still has the best job system in any game and is a joy to play through. Dude, I've been wanting to play 5 for years and years and years. Because, I really like job systems in games, and I know Final Fantasy V is I think it was invented in 3, but 5 is kind of the one people think of. So yeah, one of these days I'll get around to it. Far says, I wish the Xenoblade Chronicles games got more love. The series has some of the best stories, characters, combat, and music from any media series ever. Yes, this is another classic, like, I've been saying how I'm gonna play it for years. Like, I remember when it came out on the Wii, I was like, oh yeah, I should play this. And it just never happened. One of these days, the stars will align and I will play Xenoblade Chronicles, yes sir. Amada Karis says, the Medabots series. Really love the designs for the bots themselves. The games definitely had some ups and downs in quality, but I enjoyed them for the most part. The series is still going on in Japan, but we haven't received a release in the West since the GameCube era. Oh my god. Yeah, it sucks that Medabots is just one of those series that, like, for one reason or another, just never got any traction over here. Which is a shame, because I think a lot of the Medabots are really cool looking. Starrolu Platachu says, definitely Scissor 7 for me. Main gist of the show is about an amnesiac person who basically becomes an assassin to get some money to go to a country and restore his memories, but he's pretty bad at his job. It's mainly comedy focused and the jokes do land for me, but it does have an actual serious story and fight scenes that are very well animated. Yes, says, the Trails JRPG series is so unbelievably good. It has some of my favorite characters in all of JRPGs, phenomenal world, story, music. It is just so good. It has a total of 10 games so far, 7 of which are officially translated, and it's all a continuous story that builds on each other. I highly recommend people check it out. It's a time investment, but it's really worth it. Sealyboy says, Get a Robo. It's the original mecha anime that brought about combining robots and inspired shows like Gurren Lagann, but no one really seems to talk about it nowadays. Which is a bit of a shame, considering how different iterations usually have some unique and different themes. The manga for Go is one of the most well-received with its story and slight psychological horror elements. Armageddon is the most well-known, and it's aged pretty well in terms of animation and designs, and the OST is amazing. But hey, Arc finally got its anime adaptation, so it might not be completely forgotten by everyone. If I had to pick a game, I guess Blazblue, been left in the dust by Arxis after Dragon Ball FighterZ and Guilty Gear. Yeah. But yeah, I'll have to check out Getter Robo at some point. Like, Gurren Lagann is my favorite anime, so figure it's only right to at some point watch, like, its grandpa, basically. So yeah, one day I'll have to check it out. Stinky Drink says, I don't know if this counts, but I'll gush about it anyways. The first Sonic Riders is one of the best kart racers ever created. The story is garbage, sure, and the game has a non-existent tutorial when it really needs one. But once you learn the controls and strategies, it is unbelievably fun. The game even promotes experimentation with different boards having different gimmicks, as well as the 3 types characters can have, power, speed, and flying, which gives access to type-exclusive shortcuts. It's admittedly a bit unbalanced in vanilla, but there are fan patches that made the balance better. Overall, I highly recommend anyone to try it out. P.S. Please make a 4th Riders, Sega, please, I beg of you. Dude, I remember I rented Sonic Riders from Blockbuster and did not understand a single fucking thing about it. Like, I got so frustrated with that game because, like you said, it really doesn't teach you much of anything. Wasn't there a Sonic Rider game for the fucking Kinect? Man, that series had a rough go at its own existence, but yeah, I'm glad there's kind of like a niche community of people who sort of like figured it out, because it does seem like a really good game. It's just, you know, like you said, you kind of have to like actually understand it. Mimiko Ishikawa says, I know it's only had one game so far, but I'd say Judgment. It's an incredible Yakuza game with awesome combat, an interesting story, and great characters. Please play. Also, Saori is an absolute babe. Yeah, I might check out Judgment once I play a couple more of the Yakuza games, because it seems pretty neat. I don't really hear people talk about it, like, basically at all compared to the rest of the series, so yeah, I'll have to see what it's all about for myself. Mode 7 says, Fooly Cooley / FLCL. The show is phenomenal, especially the music and art, and I just don't see enough people talking about it. It's in no way niche, but I just want more people to see how great it is. Yeah, Fooly Cooley is one of those series where, like, if you're pretty into the anime scene, then, like, you probably know about it or you've seen it. But otherwise, it's pretty under the radar. But yeah, Fooly Cooley is fucking awesome. It's only 6 episodes. Like, you can literally sit down and, like, get through it in the length of, like, a normal movie. Mark Allison says, I have to go with Girls on Panzer on this. Yeah, let's go! I gotta tell y'all, I gotta confess, this was all just a part of a big scheme to get you guys to watch Girls on Panzer. Mark Allison is actually my alt. Watch Girls on Panzer. Yes, it does have quite a few films and an entire TV season. However, none of my friends, coworkers, or students that I talk about anime with have either seen or heard of the franchise. That must be a fascinating conversation, having to talk to your coworkers and being like, you seen Girls on Panzer? I'll admit, the characters are a bit shallow, with little to no development, and the CGI can be rough at times, especially in the TV series. The initial fight with Saint Gloriana's team was all kinds of jank, but despite these shortcomings, I just don't understand how a series about cute girls fighting in World War II tanks in a series of tournament arcs isn't more popular. Come on, the battle against the University Select team is an hour-long tank slugfest, with some of the most amazingly over-the-top fight endings in anime. Why are people sleeping on this series? I want to know the same fucking thing. I love Girls and Panzer so much. Guys, please, forget everything else in this video. Girls and Panzer is the thing to watch. Spyrotastic says, I'm gonna mention an anime that aired last season as a part of this. I haven't really seen much talk or any buzz about it. I mean, it got dubbed, so I guess Funimation cared somewhat, but it's Pretty Boy Detective Club. So many people pass it off because of the name, which always annoys me. You'd think people would learn not to judge a book by its cover. Dude, this title sounds awesome. I'm having the opposite reaction. I'm like, yo, this sounds great. It's a show with a pretty simple premise. Girl finds out about the Pretty Boy Detective Club, gets involved with them and their incredibly eccentric methods in some intentionally over-the-top cases. I, for one, love it. Everything is so bright and colorful, especially with each character having a distinctive palette for everything outside of their uniform, only really reserved exclusively for them in the show to help them really pop out. The animation is beautifully smooth. They often like to change up the visual style in a lot of scenes too. There's a lot of variety, and honestly the show is just 12 episodes of the animators flexing. The stories are intentionally over the top and outlandish, and I love it. It's kind of refreshing after the stuff I've been watching recently to see a show that doesn't take itself too seriously. Even if the cases are outlandish, they still make perfect sense in the universe, which gives it all a sense of cohesive chaos. Just because it's outlandish doesn't mean they cheaped out on the characters though, oh no. All of the PBDC are great. I could literally talk for a couple hours about Manabu Sotoin, don't question me. And even though a couple of the antagonists are a little weak, 3 out of 5 being great ain't too bad. We also have some genuinely touching themes about childhood and what it means to grow up. It's great. I would highly recommend the 12 episodes of your time, sub or dub. The post-credit scene suggested a second season and I truly hope it happens. Please Shaft, I truly want to see some more beautiful reasoning to appeal to my sense of aestheticism. It sounds like a sentence a fucking anime supervillain would say. Also, the OP slaps. And the dancing animations you may or may not have seen on the internet, set of 5 green and white background, yeah, they're from the OP of the show. Anyway, I'm done now, for real this time. I might have to look into this. This seems pretty good. Congratulations, you have sold me on Pretty Boy Detective Club. Mocha Cola says, keep your hands off the Isaacin was such a fucking good show. Like, it was the first anime in a long time I could actually watch through the whole way, because it actually felt like it had some kind of inspiration fueling it. Don't ask me in which department, I just know it's somewhere. Made it feel novel to watch, a total slapper. Protos19 says, hi Score Girl. It's amazing, the only anime where they explain what guile turtling is. I am immediately intrigued. Tree says, Yu Hakusho, my favorite anime ever. Gets almost no love despite being hugely influential to modern anime. Has an amazing OST and style to it too. Yeah, I've been meaning to check out Yu Hakusho for a very long time at this point. I remember watching it on Toonami when I was growing up. And yeah, you really don't see too much talk about it. Naruto MK says, Advance Wars has been neglected by intelligent systems for far too long, so that is my pick. Even if the remake is coming out, it took far too long. Hopefully the remake gets more people into the series. Mayonetta says, Lupin III. While it gets crazy real fast sometimes, it's amazingly fun to watch. Yeah, this is another Pogger's GF recommendation. She really wants me to watch Lupin III. She also wants to fuck Jigen. Honey, please, if you're watching this, please don't fuck Jigen. Perky says, your turn to die. Lately, it's started to get a lot more attention, but the community is still very tiny. The game itself is literally made by a single dude in RPG Maker, but you'd never be able to tell. The characters, art, plot, gameplay, music, it's all fucking fantastic. Sadly, a lot of people just know it as this cheap Danganronpa clone because of its similar trial and murder elements. At the end of the day, they're very different games and shouldn't be compared as often as they are. It also has a chapter-by-chapter release format which keeps some people away. It's understandable, but everything this game has to offer is more than worth it. Plus, there's only one chapter left, which should be releasing early to mid next year. Please play it, everyone, smiley face. It's free and can be played on browsers if you don't own a Windows PC. It's worth it, I swear. These characters are very well written and deserve a lot more attention. There's something or someone in here for almost anyone. Yeah, I actually got caught up on Your Turn to Die just a couple of days ago. I might end up doing a video about it. I don't know if I should do it now or just wait until it's actually finished, but yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot. I would definitely check out Your Turn to Die. You get to meet my boyfriend So Hiyori. Oh boy. And Mooney says Devil Survivor Overclocked. It feels like I'm the only soul on Earth who actually talks about Devil Survivor Overclocked. Nuh-uh, I exist. I wish it got more attention from the Persona community, because it has the characters that I know many people in the Persona community would love. It's also because I want more art of the protagonist and Amane being badass. Shlomo-sama says, the two Nioh games immediately come to mind. While I do prefer the Dark Souls trilogy overall, Nioh has much better build variety and combat. The way it seamlessly weaves together Japanese mythology and history to create such a compelling world and story is very commendable. Devesta Do EZ says, for me it's Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. I feel like everyone in the community knows and likes the game, but I would say it's one of my favorite fighting games, and I would say it's pretty underrated in the FGC. I just want another one or a remaster with like more characters. I Am Harbinger says, Legend of Galactic Heroes is commonly talked about when discussing GOAT anime, but nowhere else because that would require watching it. I actually have a story about Legend of Galactic Heroes, so a friend of mine, we both wanted to watch it because we had heard really good stuff about it. And so we were like, yeah, let's watch it together. And it ended up becoming one of those things where, we got through a couple of episodes. We managed to get through, the first 10-ish together. But, like all things in life, fucking work schedules and just life and stuff kind of got in the way. And since we were both so, fixated on, yeah, we're gonna watch it together, I never continued past that point, which is a shame, because I really, really enjoyed what I watched of it. So yeah, at some point I'll definitely kind of get back on the Legend of Galactic Heroes hustle, because I really enjoyed what I did see of it. Zephyr or something says, not a small series, but Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Blue Rescue Game was the first game I ever played, and I'm still holding out hope for a new Switch game that isn't a remake. There's something about being a Pokemon that fills me with the same childlike wonder I felt when I first played it. Oh yeah, dude, Pokemon Blue Rescue Team really was, I think, one of, the defining games for me. I played the fuck out of that game. That was, one of my favorite DS games. I never did end up getting the remake for, Pokemon Blue and Red Rescue Team. I sometimes forget that even came out, but yeah, at some point I should either replay it or get the remake, because yeah, Pokemon Blue Rescue Team is one of my favorite games. Noah Nesbitt says, the Legendary Starfy is a game I rarely hear anyone talk about, and it's one of the best games on the DS. It's a great side-scroller with adorable characters and a cute story. It was actually the first game I remember beating, and as a kid that was a huge deal. My favorite thing about the game was how much extra content there was after you beat it. There were 2 extra worlds, tons of collectibles and unlockables, like a capsule machine with figures of the characters, and an in-game talk show where one of the characters would interview other characters from the game. It sucks that none of the other 4 previous games were localized. They don't even have complete fan translations. Yeah, I actually played the Legendary Starfy. I remember, he showed up as an assist trophy in Smash, so that's kind of what inspired me to get it, and yeah, it was pretty good. The Pokemon Adventures manga is also really good. Many may dismiss it because of the source material, but it's a legitimately good comic. Does a good job following the game's general plots, while adding its own unique spin on things, such as giving the player characters actual personality. Characters exclusive to the manga like Yellow and Emerald, or unique characterization of characters from the games. Spoiler alert, the Elite Four are the antagonists of one of the arcs. One glaring flaw I will mention is that all the protagonists are named after their respective games, even though after Gen 2, most characters had actual canon names to go off. So instead of following the adventures of Ethan or May, we have Gold and Sapphire. This results in a pretty humorous moment in the Black and White arc where the male protagonist, who's known as Hilbert, introduces himself by saying, "Me, I'm black." While it fell off after that arc, I can confidently recommend everything up to Fire Red and Leaf Green. Yeah, I actually finished reading the first, the Gen 1 kind of stuff for Pokemon Adventures, and I really enjoyed it. It does kind of start off how you'd expect, just it's just a manga adaptation of Pokemon Red and Blue. But after a bit, it starts doing its own really goofy stuff, and it's really entertaining. So yeah, if you're looking for a twist on the original Pokemon stories, definitely check it out. Alfredo de la Garza says, D-Fragments. Not only is it my favorite anime and manga, but it is also my favorite form of media ever created. This is the show that turned me into the weeb I am today. The D-Frag anime was released in 2014, just missing the anime boom that happened around 2017. While it makes me sad it was released before anime became more mainstream, I may not have seen or enjoyed it as much if it was released at a different point in time. Although at first glance it may seem like a typical high school comedy, you quickly realize this isn't the case. It's one of the funniest shows with excellent characters. Every girl is a strong contender for Best Girl. D-Frag is a series that goes above and beyond the norm for the sake of comedy. Both the English and Japanese dubs are top quality. The English dub is my preferred way of watching it. It's a series where the viewer/reader feels the passion the author has for this form of art. I'm still waiting for the second season. Dietrich Roche, I guess that's how you say your name, says, Girl's Last Tour is a hidden gem that got the bad luck of being on Amazon's anime service and cast in the shadow of Made in Abyss. Beto says, 2 that come to mind for me is Senran Kagura, but you know Sony. Yeah, those motherfuckers. However, another one is Umineko, which from what I am noticing gets very outshined by its big brother Higurashi. Dude, Senran Kagura is like better than it should be. Like, I finished the first game not too long ago and I was actually pretty surprised. It has like a pretty alright story and like some pretty good characters. Like, alas, I do not know how to read, so I don't think I'll ever go through Umineko. So yeah, I wish all Umineko readers a pleasant evening. Oof the Degenerate says, for me, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! V-Reigns. It's my second favorite anime ever. I'm a very big fan of pretty much anything Yu-Gi-Oh!, manga, card game, anime, etc. It's undoubtedly the best thing to ever come from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. A lot of the cards that are used are really good in the IRL game. The characters have the best development since GX. The story, especially during the last arc, is amazing. The theme is similar to P3 and in my opinion, is much better developed than P3. Not trying to throw shade at P3, its themes are pretty well developed. It has my favorite antagonist in anime and overall third favorite in media, Monokuma and Maruki Supremacy. Favorite protagonist in media. Also my favorite rival character in media. It deals with the topic of AI and if they can make genuine relationships with humans and each other, which is something that I think about a lot. It is a very flawed show, mostly due to its troubled production, but it's still a great watch, especially if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan. Also, watch Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. It's the best show to come from Cartoon Network. Dude, I don't think I've heard this level of like glowing praise for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, like, basically ever. Because, like, I don't ever really hear people, like, super discussing Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. I think because a lot of people are, like, they're, like, boomers like myself, and they kind of fall into this trapping of being like, yep, they don't make them like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anymore. That was where it was at. I hear a lot of people say 5Ds is pretty good, but, like, I hear almost nothing positive about, like, Zexal and Arc V, like, ever. So shit, maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! V-Reigns was like undercover bussin', who knows? Might have to look into that. Dude, I'm not even gonna try to say your name because I'm gonna fuck it up really bad. Jokubus? I'm so sorry. He says, Tatami Galaxy. It's a great anime series directed by Masaki Yuasa, the guy who directed Devilman Crybaby and Japan Sinks. It's one of my favorite anime of all time with a lot of great themes, great dialogue, and great characters. It definitely deserves more attention than it has right now. On our final entry from Bluefoot, he says, I would say for myself it's the manga anime Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei by author Koji Kumeda. The Studio Shaft adaptation has some of the most unique visual flares and most out there sense of humor that just really clicked with me, along with having one of my favorite OPs of all time. The ending the manga has is really out there, and when I finished, I was sad to see there wasn't much analysis on it. But it truly became one of my favorite series of all time, along with electing Kumeda to one of my favorite all-time writers. Alright, and that is it. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. I always like kind of looking through like, you know, games and stuff that people really like and really want other people to play. And I also like just giving people, you know, a shot to kind of shill some of the stuff that they really like, since, you know, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? Dude, why would anyone ever smoke crack when you can get the satisfaction of like getting somebody to watch girls on Panzer? Completely baffles me. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.